Alright, starting. All right. So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here with us. This is the Nature Exchange. Uh, this week's topic is the nature of the holidays, hosted by the Humber Arboretum ambassadors of this year. So this will look a little bit different for all of you, but here's our final project of the Humber Arboretum ambassadors. So I will do the land acknowledgement first, and then we will introduce ourselves. All right. So, Humber College and the Humber Arboretum are located within the traditional and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, known as Etobicoke, the place of the alders in Mississauga Glenwich. The region is uniquely situated along Humber River watershed, which historically provided an integral connection for Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wyandot peoples between the Ontario Lakeshore and the Lake Simcoe, Georgian Bay regions. Now home to people of numerous nations, Etobicoke continues to provide a vital source of interconnection for all. All right, so now we're going to introduce ourselves. My name is Angel Suarez, aka Hummingbird. I'm a Humber College student, Humber College international student from Mexico. My program is early childhood education, and I'm very excited to be here with all of you. And I will throw it over to David.
All right, unmute everything this time, right? Hi, everyone. My name is David. I I'm in my third year of the film and television production program here at Humber, so I'm a student as well, and I'm also part of the our ambassadors. And I also work closely with Marilyn on what is my job? Oh, well, I basically help with the communications team, focusing on video content. And yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be able to attend these for once. I'm usually working right now, so yeah, it's great. And I guess I'll pass it over to Red Panda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mia, nature name Red Panda, and I am a Humber College alumni as well as University of Guelph Humber alumni. I was in the psychology program, and I work at the Arboretum as an educational assistant. Yeah, so it's going to be fun today. We have a very cool topic, and I will pass it to Max.
Hello, I'm Max. My nature name is Groundhog, and I'm a nature interpreter at the Arboretum. Unlike you, David, I know what my title is. I just don't know what I actually am supposed to be doing. The opposite there. But I have to say, this is really fun to mix up the lineup for our nature exchange a bit. I'm excited. This is really fun. And I'll pass it over to Sticky.
Hello, I'm Mike, or my nature name is Sticky. I'm the senior nature interpreter and assistant coordinator of camps and education here at the Arboretum. And like Max, I'm excited that we have some different folks in the Nature Exchange. Welcome and happy that you're all here. And I will pass it over to Minnow.
No pressure.
Hi, everyone. I'm Minnow, also known as Marilyn, the communications assistant for the Arboretum. And yes, I work with David, who is a student content creator, along with Nicole, who I will pass it to.
So my name is Nicole. As Marilyn said, I work alongside her. I also work alongside David, Angel, and Mia. And I'm currently a third-year student at Guelph Humber in the Media Studies program. My nature name is Violet, by the way. And I guess I'll pass it back to Angel to get everything started.
Yes, perfect. So thank you, everybody. So as we mentioned before, oh, you have something, Groundhog? Oh, okay. No worries. So as I mentioned before, this is the final project of Humber Arboretum Ambassadors. So the Humber Arboretum Ambassadors come from the Learning by Leading program, which is an opportunity that we have for all Humber College and University of Guelph Humber students. We have our shirts, we're wearing the shirts very proudly. And you can join the Humber Arboretum Ambassadors in Training, which is the first step in the ladder of the Learning by Leading program. After you learn a lot, about the Humber Arboretum and you have your nature connection, you will go to the second stage, which is the Humber Arboretum Ambassadors, where you are going to be hosting different events, plan different activities for students. You will table events, at the Humber Arboretum, and the option is that you can do it, online or in person. So we're very excited to be here with all of you, and hopefully this turns out so good as always. But to begin with, we would like to have a nature exchange. Well, this is the nature exchange, but I mean, like, we would like to see if you saw something interesting or something that you would like to share for the audience, something cool in nature that you have seen. Anybody, just raise your hand and we will pass it over to you. All right, Marilyn.
So mine's a little update, but I will summarize for people who have not attended before. That I mentioned a few weeks ago about watching a coot, which is a bird that looks a lot like a duck, but is actually more related to a heron in Lake Ontario. And I was entertained by the fact that it was sort of entertained / felt bad that they dive down. They dive down and get plants from the bottom and bring them back up. And there are dabbling ducks who can't do that. And I was watching the coot get harassed by mallards in the lake because every time it would dive down and come back up, the mallards were waiting to take the plants from the coot. And it was this whole thing. So the update to that, so I was like, it turns out mallards are jerks. The update to that is widgeons, which are another kind of duck that only comes here in the winter. I guess must be bigger jerks, because I've noticed now that the widgeons have obviously driven the mallards away, and there's two widgeons who now follow the coot around, like one on each side, like a little security team, except what they're actually there to do is keep the mallards away so they can take the plants. So that's my update on my previous thing, is yes, mallards are jerks, but widgeons are bigger jerks, and win, I guess, when it comes down to it.
Awesome. Didn't know that. All right, Sticky.
Okay, so this is not a new story, but I don't think I've told it yet. So for also to fill in, I recently, it's not, I guess, recently anymore. It's like a month ago, over a month, went to Iceland, and this is a story about mallards now in Iceland. So it's a addendum to Maryland's story. In the middle of Reykjavik, there are two, sizable ponds right in the middle of the city, and there's swans, hooper swans, there's greylag geese, there's all kinds of different gulls, and there's mallards. And they all vie for tourists feeding them at one corner. And the black-headed gull, which didn't know it was that at the time because the juveniles don't have black heads, but that's mostly what we saw. They chase the mallards away from any time they try to do anything. It's specifically these two. Nobody messes with the geese, and especially nobody messes with the swans because they're large and angry. But I found it kind of interesting that juvenile black-headed gulls specifically chase mallards away from the food. So on the scale, you can slot in black-headed gulls in the widgeon category. If somebody wants to, create a graphic for us, David, of the levels of birds who are being mean to other birds, add the black-headed gull because they like to chase the mallards. So there you go. That's my story.
Apparently, we have to arrange for a black-headed gull widgeon face-off.
Showdown.
We know how to, yeah.
Somewhere over the Atlantic, I guess.
All right, Max.
I feel like there's a Discovery Channel show where they can stimulate that fight for us, and we can watch that. So my nature moment, truthfully, I've been very busy in the last 2 weeks. I feel like I've barely spent any time exploring outside at all. But, Minnow, to put you on the spot for a second there, I read your blog this week. So Marilyn has a blog called Minnow and Mouse. And this week, They wrote about the Carolina mantis, right? The Carolina mantis, which is a native praying mantis to North America. And it just like sent me down a loophole of all this research because, yeah, very interesting stuff. So it wasn't in nature, but it was nature related.
Yeah, for sure. And go and visit Mino's website, which is amazing and has really good, artwork. And yeah, if you can post a link, that would be awesome.
I mean, if you're asking for it,
We're twisting your arm.
sure. There we go. That's
Take the promo.
Yes, just to say that the artwork is my partner Steve, who is Mouse. That's the Mouse and Minnow thing. So I don't do that art. He is the artist. My art is a lot rougher than that. But yes, please enjoy it. I'm glad it sent you down a rabbit hole, Max, because that's always the goal, really.
It was cool that you put some resources for further like people who are curious to learn more. There's some links at the bottom that you can follow and really got me going.
That's for you guys. I mean, I know, that's who that's for.
All right. So any other story, any other like cool stuff that you have seen out there right now that the snow is, here? Anything else? I mean, to me, it's really interesting, to see the prints at this time of the year. So especially, squirrel prints in the snow, because at the beginning, when I came here to Canada and I just experienced snow for the first time, I remember that I used to see, these prints that are like two little paws at the front, and then at the back, the same size, but they were closer, right? And I was like, what is that? And I was just seeing them, like pretty similar. They were just like printed there, and they always stop at a tree. So, if you want to identify some prints, I would really recommend to Google it. There's a lot of like field guides about that. But if you're wondering what is that in your backyard, those cute 4 paws, 2 separated and then 2 together, that always end up in a tree, it would possibly be a squirrel. So
the hint is that it's not a rabbit if it ends at a tree.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or not any rabbit we know.
Exactly. I think Red Panda has a question, right?
And one more tip is that if it looks similar to that and it's even smaller and has a little line following it, it's probably a mouse. Because mice drag their tails, whereas a squirrel keeps their tail up, and the squirrel would be more of a brush mark. So you can tell the difference there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes. Zaina?
Is it okay if I share?
Yes, of course.
So I was just thinking about like something in nature that was interesting. And in 2018, I went on a trip to Malaysia and we visited this like island. And while we were walking up, there's monkeys just in the trees, just like a whole bunch of monkeys. And I had a bag of shells and my 1-year-old niece I was holding. And the monkey came trying to take the bag, ended up on top of my shoulder, pulling at me and my niece. They almost like dragged her out of my arms. I had to like fight this monkey off while one-handedly holding a baby.
Oh, wow. That is a story.
Yep.
Yes, and where was that? Malaysia?
Yes, Malaysia.
Oh, that is, yeah. I mean, nature from different countries. A lot of difference. We were having that conversation also in one of the meetings of the Humber Arboretum ambassadors. About how different is for us to experience different seasons in different countries, right? So countries that are more close to the equator, like Mexico, we experience Christmas really different than Canada, or even if you go, more to the south, like for example Brazil, they will have the, during Christmas it is actually summer down there. So imagine that. Imagine have a really warm Christmas. So that would be a little bit strange, right? But anyway, so for this week we have the holiday special. That's why I have my tree turned on right here, and I have a little Santa Claus with me. We will be talking about some of the topics around holidays, and I really want to start with one anecdote that I had this morning because my mom is visiting me from Mexico, and it is her first time here in Canada and her first snow here in Canada. So we were out there having a walk in the morning, and she was having like all the snowflakes, like lining up in her arm, and she was staring at them, and you can clearly see the snowflake, right? And my mom was saying, "Oh my God, it is exactly how they uh, draw it in the movies, and the cartoons. Like you can exactly see all the points, and how it's like this perfect but tiny shape." And it was very very interesting to me, and to find out that uh, all snowflakes have 6 points, and not two snowflakes are the same because of the different conditions that they may face when they are falling from the sky. So just a little fact, some facts around that. Each snowflake is created by a drop of, it could be dust, it could be pollen, and while it's like going down, different particles, like the particles of water, are sticking out. So that's how they create like the hexagon, because that is just chemistry. It is what it is. And then because it is warm and then it's cold, it starts forming those like amazing shapes. So try to be out there in snow. Try to wear something that is like really dark, and you will be able to see the different patterns of the snowflakes. So to begin with, we have snow, right? December. We start with a lot of snow. Anybody has anything to share? Max?
I was just gonna add, I really like, when the snow is falling and all the snowflakes kind of like stick together in the air, so that by the time it reaches the ground, you have this like little mass of all the little fluffy snow stuck together. Do you know what I mean? And they just fall really lightly. I think that might be my favorite type of snowfall.
Yes, like the sensation of the. Also, like for me, I didn't know that there were like different types of snow. You have like the fluffy snow, like really cute December snow, but then you have like the February, or like, snow which is like really hard with all the wind that is like hurting your eyes, and for me, like stepping on that like fluffy snow, it is a pleasure that I didn't know I had, like, just walking on snow, that is something real good. David?
Yeah, and to kind of speak to that a bit, and I was gonna see if anyone else was kind of like me, although maybe some of y'all are more winter people, and maybe it's because I'm not. But for me, there seems to be like a kind of like a clear distinction between the pre-holiday winter and snow, and then the post-holiday winter and snow, where the impression is, oh, before the holidays or during the holidays, it's like, oh, nice, fluffy, beautiful falling snow, for the holidays, and then up until New Year's. But then almost immediately after that, to me, snow is almost just associated with like, slush practically, and just having to trudge through it, on the sidewalks. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Definitely. Max?
Oh, I 100% agree. Especially as Torontonians, you reach a certain point where like the snow is no longer white; it's like grayish black. I remember I was working at a retreat center up north a couple winters ago, and these high school students surrounded by this like actual white fluffy snow that no one has stepped on it. It's just beautiful. And this kid says to another kid, wow, the snow here is so nice. It's not scary like at my house. And I thought that was so
Yes.
speaks to what you're talking about there. Yeah.
I think it is the worst thing when you are like out there in Toronto and you're just walking, and then a bus just passes really fast, and then you get all that like gray, black stuff all over your face. Not fun. Not fun.
And especially for, if you live in a house, that ridge of snow at the end of your driveway that you always got to deal with at a certain point, that just hardens eventually. And so, yeah, great stuff. Great stuff.
Yes. So I know that we have a couple winter people right here. I know that Max enjoys winter a lot, and also Mike. They enjoy a lot of winter. So what are some activities that you can do, with snow or in winter or with snow? Do you have any suggestions? Sticky.
Well, I can tell you about my favorite thing to do, and it sounds crazy, but or it sounds kind of out there. So I enjoy winter camping, which in and of itself, most people would be like, "What?" And my favorite thing to do while winter camping is to build and sleep in what's called a quincy, which is, everybody knows what an igloo is, right? It's blocks of snow cut to certain sizes, and that is difficult and takes knowledge from elders, and you really have to know what you're doing, and you have to have the right kind of snow. A quincy is, and it's funny, David, you mentioned the end of the driveway buildup that hardens. If anybody has ever hollowed out their snowbanks growing up, it's the same concept. So you make a big pile of snow and you let it sit for a few hours, like as long as possible, and then you hollow it out and then you sleep inside. And it's warm because snow insulates, so the inside will start melting with body heat, and it's soundproof. So I'm a scout leader. I often take my scouts to do this, and scouts do not fall asleep the time you tell them to. And usually we're in tents, and I'm just listening to all their conversations. In a quincy, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to listen to them. It's soundproof. You put a couple of sticks in it when you start, and then that's how you tell how thick the walls are. And then you pull those out, and those are your little like vent holes. It is super fun. You can build one in a backyard in an afternoon. You're going to get wet, and you're going to have a lot of fun. And you want to make sure you dig up as well as in, because if it's too heavy at the top, it could collapse. But that's only ever happened to me once in doing this 20 or 30 times. So that's one of my favorites. The other kind of shelter you can build, and this one sounds a little ominous, is it called a snow coffin, which it's only related to its shape because it's kind of that shape. So you basically, you don't have to cross your arms when you go to sleep, but you build a little snowbank in that kind of U shape, and then you get some sticks and cross them over. And then if you have a tarp or something, then you can also throw snow on top. And then you get in at the end, and it is super warm as well. I will just say it's very difficult to climb in, take off your boots, and roll into a sleeping bag, because really the only space that's there is you made it for you to sleep. So it's very difficult to get into it. But one of the warmest nights I ever had was in one of those in pretty cold conditions. So don't have to sleep in them. You can make them in a backyard or even in a park if you want. So that's one of my favorites, is making in and sleeping in snow shelters. And I'll pass it to Max for any fun winter activities.
Yes.
Well, I'll say I really like tracking. When the snow starts to fall, I actually get giddy because you start seeing those cute little squirrel prints and things like that. And for me, that's the funnest thing. So that's probably my favorite.
Nice. Yeah. So maybe today you can go out and, see the tracks, or you can be out there and just sleep outside, build a coffin and just try.
I feel like my words are being twisted, but that's okay.
All right, over to Red Panda.
Yeah, so I don't know if this qualifies as a winter activity, but picnicking in wintertime is actually super, super fun, right? You could bring a thermos of some hot chocolate with marshmallows in there, hang out in the snow, have some food, and you could even try making those maple syrup lollipops and things like that. So that's pretty fun.
Yes.
Is that the thing? that I heard where you kind of just throw maple syrup in the snow and, scoop that up, or is that different?
No, that's the one where you like put it in like a line, and then I think you roll it with like a stick, and it forms a lollipop that's like way too sweet that nobody finishes.
Just make sure it's not the dirty black
Yeah,
snow.
Yes.
yeah.
It's
Definitely
a little crunchy.
Yeah,
Give
very
it some
much.
texture.
All right, over to Nicole.
Going off of the actual maple syrup lollipops, one of my favorite memories of the snow when I was a kid was going to the maple sugar tree farms. I would go every year, I think around like February or March, so I guess it's further into the spring, but I would go every year with my family. And I don't know, I just had a lot of good memories with that. The snow was starting to melt at that point, but it was still pretty cold. And then just eating the maple sugar with the snow was always my favorite part. And then one other thing that I always look forward to as a kid, I live in a court. So when the snow plows come around, they would pile all of the snow into the middle of the court. And when I was really little, it would be like this giant pile of snow. So my sister and I would spend a lot of time trying to climb on it or even try and like dig into it and stuff. So kind of similar to what Sticky was talking about.
Yes. So like using snow, I think for me, snow is really impressive, because you can use it as a material, to build shelter, to, play, to do different things. So it is good. I would say, try to dress appropriately to the weather, because winter is also amazing if you're dressed properly. So, try to insulate yourself. Layers are going to help you a lot. If you get too warm, you can always take off one layer, right? But if you don't have enough layers, what are you gonna do, right? You're gonna freeze. But also we have another cool topic. So I don't know if you notice something really beautiful right here. So, and I'm not talking about Santa Claus, but we have some winter plants, some plants that resemble to the holidays, right? So I have this plant right here, and this plant is called Poinsettia, right? And I learned about it. This plant is very special for me because actually it's native to Mexico. I don't know if you knew that, but it's actually native from Mexico. The Aztec people used to have this plant for medicinal purposes. So they call it in Mexico right now. They call it Nochebuena, which is Christmas Eve, because they are around this time of the year, right? Let me just show you a little bit. I think I have some facts right here. So, okay, so some of the description of it. It has red and green leaves, right? Some people think that the red part is actually the flower, but actually it's not. These red leaves are leaves, as I said. So those are modified, and the flowers are actually like here in the middle. Right? So this is something really cool that you know right now. And as I said, they are native to Mexico, and they were cultivated by the Aztecs to use in traditional medicine. They used to use these leaves for coloring purposes. So they used to color, for paintings or for other things. So, this is other of their uses, and it was called poinsettia because of Joel Robert Poinsett, who was the one who brought it from Mexico to the United States. So that is why it's called poinsettia. So yeah, it's called the mortal flower in Spanish, in Nahuatl, which is the language of indigenous peoples from Mexico City. And it is called the dead flower because of the bright red color that they have. And because they grow up in like landfills, in like really rough soils, so Aztecs were not supposed to mess up with the plant. They didn't cut it down. They only use it for medicinal purposes because it was thought to be linked to the spiritual world and the death, and because it's red and they used to do some sacrifices. It was also because of that. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about poinsettia because it's really close to my heart. And I don't know if anybody wants to share something about poinsettia. You like the flower or not? Do you think it's like Christmas related plant? What do you think, everyone? Oh, Jimmy.
So if when you're talking about poinsettias, if you're ever, Angel, if you're ever interested and you ever have a chance, around this time of year, you can go visit Terra Greenhouses, just north of Hamilton on Highway 5. And when you go into a place like that around this time of year, it will blow your mind as to the variations within the poinsettia family. I still remember when I worked there, coming in the morning, and the lights wouldn't really be officially on. It was more of like the overnight grow lights that would stay on. And like you'd look and they have every color, multicolors. I had knew there was a couple of maybe different kinds of poinsettia, before I had started there, but I did not have any idea as to all the different things that, like, all the different genetic variations of, your true poinsettia. It's really, really quite cool to look at. I'm sure lots of other places do, but one thing that's unique about Terra is that the store is actually in the greenhouse as well. So when you go in, the front part is sort of like the goods, and then the back part is where they have all the different plants growing. And so you can actually see them and you pick them from where they're growing. And it is, yeah, such a neat plant. And as you said, I thought for the longest time that the leaves were the flowers. And then, someone was like, no, it's this little tiny flower right in here. So that's really cool to hear that it's from, that it has such a significance to you, and that that it is from Mexico. That's really neat. I was actually thinking about it the other day. I wonder where poinsettia is actually from.
It is actually cool. From Mexico, and when the Spanish people conquered Mexico, and because this plant was very important for indigenous people, and they wanted to do the assimilation of the Spaniard culture, that's how it came to be like a Christmas kind of flower. Because one of the legends that the Spanish people said is that there was a little girl that was going to celebrate Christmas, but she didn't have a gift, right? So she went like outside this chapel, I believe, and she was like really sad. But suddenly, a miracle happened, and then this flower that was just roughly growing out there, this green flower, turned its leaf red. And that's how that little girl could take the flower and bring it in as a gift for Christmas. So that's from that moment on. I think it was around the 1500s. It's been represented. It's been representing Christmas in Mexico, and after that, Joel Robert Poinsett just brought it to United States, and the rest is history. So it was very interesting to know that. And just cool fact, and FYI, poinsettias in the indigenous language from Mexico is Cuetlaxochitl. So good. If you want to try it, you're free to do so.
I gotta try and look up a picture of it and see what it looks like when it's like. Does it have red leaves when it's growing in its native habit, like in its native habitat? Very cool.
And they come from a variety of colors, as you said, Jimmy, but the original, the native one is red, and that's why it represented like blood, and like this sacrifice from the Aztecs. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. So talking about all our holiday plans, we have the mistletoe, right, Panda?
Yeah, so the mistletoe is actually one of my favorite plants. It looks like this. I don't have a real one, but it looks like that. So it has green leaves and white berries on it. So what I learned is that mistletoe is actually a parasitic plant. After a mistletoe germinates, it develops like a modified root called a haustorium that penetrates the bark of the host tree, and it forms a connection. And in the connection, water and nutrients pass from the tree host into the parasite mistletoe. So you'll find those in Europe on apple trees, poplars, willows, lindens, and hawthorn trees. Its North American counterpart, which is the eastern mistletoe, also parasitizes many deciduous trees, mostly oak trees.
Interesting.
So yeah, so I think it was really cool that there's this whole tradition of if you meet someone under a mistletoe, you have to kiss them. So you're like kissing somebody under a parasitic plant. So I just found that kind of funny.
Yeah. And that's been always very funny to me because I come from a country where we don't have that tradition, right? Like kissing under a plant, like on Christmas, okay. But yeah, we have certain traditions and beliefs around plants and trees also, right? So as you can see here, I have my Christmas tree, and I think David has something cool to share with you about what types of trees are common as Christmas trees, right, David?
Yeah. Well, what kind of inspired this whole idea of the nature exchange was that, you know, growing up for the longest time, not growing up as in tune with nature as maybe some other people in this group. To me, a Christmas tree was just, you know, the pine tree, the coniferous trees, right? It's just the one that doesn't shed in winter. But obviously being involved with the arb, I've learned to, think about like the exact species and specific types of trees. So I got to think of what exactly types of, like, is there like one type of Christmas tree that's like one species that's preferred, or is there a bunch of different ones? And so, and I did a quick search. I even can't find it right now. That I don't know that I saw that made me think that a lot of what is grown is actually like non-native, but I couldn't find that anymore. So but I did do some search again, and apparently, yeah, there are, as you might expect, especially in Canada, there are plenty of native species trees, and it's not just one, right? So, obviously, some of you all might be more familiar with this than I am, but like, and this is just from one website I found, but it's like they have like things like Scotch Pine and like I think a balsam fir, those trees, and then white spruce and yeah, it's just like, yeah, it just made me like, yeah, obviously being with the art just made me realize that even if many of them look the same, it's not all the same species, and it's made me realize like what, especially for maybe if there was a certain specific property that one tree was preferred over others, which I guess in modern times I read one thing where it's like one of the most popular ones, the needles are like very like sturdy, like they tend to not shed, which especially bring a real tree into your home, that's probably something you want, right? So it just made me think about the kind of nuances between the different tree species that would be used for Christmas trees.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about modified leaves, as we did with poinsettia, we can also talk about the modified leaves of the coniferous trees, right? Which the needles look pretty different from other type of leaves, right? So anybody has any things to share around trees, Christmas trees or anything around that? Something cool, a fact to throw right there. Jimmy.
So I know when I worked at the same place, Terra. Wow, just talking so much about it's like a Terra infomercial today. So you work a lot with Christmas trees in the wintertime, and so you get to know them very, very well. Quite, a nice personal connection in a lot of cases. But you're absolutely right. So the most expensive and sort of desired type of tree are two non-native species, which is Douglas fir and Fraser fir. But balsam fir is a very popular one as well. So the balsam fir is a native species here to Ontario. I believe Douglas and Fraser are more West Coast species, but those are the ones that they have a really, their needles, I mean, sometimes I'm surprised at how long they stay on with very little water. Spruce trees can be used, but spruce trees are actually pretty notorious for excessive amounts of needle drop. So that's why not a huge number of people use them. It's funny because you mentioned Scotch Pine, and that was a funny thing at Terra Nursery, because Scotch Pine is a common tree as well, but it's actually the species name is Scots Pine, but lots of people for some reason at Christmas just refer to it as Scotch Pine, but it is a Scots Pine. Like even now when I say it, it sounds the exact same. But it was funny. So because I had when I was working at Terra, I had just learned about that tree in school, and so you learn how to identify certain trees by their needles. So the white pine with the 5 needles, spruce are different, balsam fir have the really flat needles. But yeah, the neat thing is that I have seen a lot of people, balsam firs don't keep their needles as long. But a lot of people like them because of their smell. I can't remember which one it is. It's either the Douglas or the Fraser that it doesn't have the best smell, and I can't remember which one it is, but people liken it to cat pee. So, you know, the needles might stay on a long time, but the sap is not the most pleasant smelling sap. But Scots Pine tends to be sort of your most common cost-effective tree. Douglas firs and Fraser firs tend to be, obviously, because if they're coming from, you know, other parts, you know, it takes a lot more, you know, money to even just get them to where they're going. But yeah, that was just a couple of things I learned, just related to needles and the qualities that people are looking for, right? So some of the things with spruce trees as well, it's their growth pattern. They tend to have a lot larger spacing in between the branches. But nowadays, a lot of Christmas trees are actually pruned to, you know, they're pruned along the way to make sure they have that nice form. And you'll notice a difference if you go to cut your own tree, for example, at a tree farm. That tree is going to look very, very different than a tree that you have bought from another place that's pre-cut, and has been sort of shaped by the people before they bagged it. So it is a neat kind of tradition. I mean, honestly, for myself, I grew up with a fake tree. It was my Nana's tree, and I'm allergic to tree pollen, and I was getting sick a lot of Christmases. And so my mom was like, you know, well, we're gonna try to move away from a real tree and see if this helps, and it did. So we never, you know, it wasn't until we started getting our own Christmas tree that we went back to the real Christmas tree, and thankfully that does not affect my allergies anymore.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Jimmy. And I think that is a really good conversation to have, you know, because some people are thinking like, what should I have? Should I have a fake tree? Should I have a real tree? You know, what is more sustainable, right? And we have talked a lot about this in the at the Humber Arboretum with the Learning by Leading program and with the staff. You know, and we believe that sustainability is also a decisions that we make every day, right? So sometimes we will have some factors like Jimmy was having when he was young. You know, if you have allergies and you cannot have a real tree, well, the option for you would be to have a fake tree. But that tree, you will use it year after year after year. And if you want to dispose of it, you will do it properly, you know, in a proper manner. But if you can do, you know, real trees, you can buy real trees. So I will throw it over to David because I think he has a really cool, you know, he had some facts about real versus fake trees and the sustainability aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like you mentioned, there's lots of factors that kind of go into it, like you know, both, you know, in terms of environmental, but also economical, right? Because you know, fake trees you can use year after year. It's like a purchase until you need to purchase a new one, which hopefully won't be for a very long time after when you got initially that fake tree. Yeah, and there was a graphic of a study. Can you all see the graphic here? Is that what's showing?
And
Yeah, so just kind of like a natural versus our artificial, and speaks about like how about carbon emissions and productions and kind of the benefits or pros and cons of each. And an interesting to note is that an artificial tree, this study found, because, and this made the science in me coming out, but like, you know, obviously there's nuances to everything, especially in just even, you know, science, how you study it or what you research can also affect the results. But basically, like, what they found was that, you know, an artificial tree can have less impact on climate change if you keep it for at least 8 years, and they say ideally 20 years is best. So and I'm just curious if any of you have used a fake tree. I don't know how long does yours typically last. Like me personally, my family is also a fake tree, and as far as I know, we still have the only one we've ever used. Although that said, in the last few years, we haven't actually had the time because the summer's always been super busy to actually take it out. So it's been a few years since we have it, but as far as I know, ever since my whole life, we still have the same one. So I'm just curious what's the duration of trees for other people? or if you have a real tree, what's your experience with that?
Sticky.
So I wanted my whole life to have a real tree and still never done it. My family has had 2 fake trees my entire life. One of them is now going on, I think, year 26. So, and it's still, the original box is still mostly intact. I have to tie it together every year for putting it in my parents' basement, but that one has sustained for over 25 years. So they can last if you buy a decent one, and then you can feel good about it not going to waste after a couple years. So that's my family's.
Yeah, and I think to kind of tap onto the end of that is, if you are going to get rid of it, like if it's like worn down, then obviously looking to dispose of it properly. But maybe you're just like moving and you just don't have room to take it with you, then by all means try and pass it on, like have it reused, right, so that it's not going to waste. So yeah, and good to know that they last a really long time. I'm a little concerned, like you mentioned the box, that since we haven't taken it out in a few years, I'm a little concerned about what we might find down there when we do take it out again.
Yes. Also for my tree, this is the first time that I put on my Christmas tree here in Canada, and actually, one of my friends just give it to me. They gave it to me, so try to if you are looking for a fake tree, and some of your friends might be willing to give it to you, so they give me this, along with the Christmas decorations. So, I'm doing something good for the environment, and I'm not spending money. So, all right, over to Nicole.
So for me, my family and I, it's a tradition. We get a real tree every year. When I was younger, we used to go to the Christmas tree farm and actually cut it down ourselves, but we've started just going to a nursery and buying them pre-cut. But one thing we do with some of the extra branches and stuff is we actually create wreaths out of them. So we take the extra branches off of the tree and we form wreaths. We hang them on our door. Sometimes we give them to people as early Christmas presents and stuff. And I think it's just a nice way to kind of use other parts of the tree that you might not be using.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy.
Yeah, I think that's neat and I think one of the things that related to real trees that a lot of people don't understand is that they do actually have a lot of use after you use them for the Christmas season. A lot of Christmas trees, believe it or not, are actually used in stream restoration projects. Christmas trees make for great sediment traps and help to support eroding banks. Bonnie Anderson is, if you ever want to hear some hilarious stories about Christmas trees, Bonnie Anderson, who's an outdoor educator, literally goes on like drives to get as many Christmas trees as she can from people throwing them out at the side of the road, because she says they literally make you take them in and kids can cut the branches off. The trunk is usually nice and straight, and so they make for just like the best shelter building sources of shelter building material. She's like, and she'll go out and they'll have like 30 of them, and then kids will come in and they'll just literally let them, even with little saws, because the branches aren't too thick, right? So it's a good opportunity for people to learn how to use a saw. But it was interesting. I'm curious to see where Christmas trees go, because I think that there will always be this debate. One of the reasons we went back to a natural tree is the fact that, looking in the research, it's the habitat services they provide for their entire life up to the point as to when they're cut down. And the fact is when they're done, they're going to decompose anyways. But it was interesting because like I said, I grew up with a fake tree, love it. But one thing I'm actually kind of shocked at is to see that there's not a lot of effort being, or maybe I'm just missing it, but each time I go in, there's not a lot of effort in putting together a more sustainably produced Christmas tree, that has elements of plastics that are, recyclable or something like that, so that when it does, because another big thing with fake trees, especially now, and who knows in the past, I think, in the past, those trees probably lasted for 26 years because we didn't have planned obsolescence in our society at that time. But now when we do, we're like, oh yeah, this tree, it'll be done in about 5 years for you. So, but it's interesting to see that that's not an area that has sort of garnered support, because there is a lot of off-gassing with the new trees as well. This is something I was reading when we were looking at the research, and some of the plastics that they're using to build these things are not good for when you're bringing them into your home, and the stuff that's connected to them, and the fact that once they are done, hopefully 26 years later, not a big deal, but if these newer style of trees are ones that, especially things I see with like lights built into them, it's like, well, what happens when one of those lights break? Then what do you got to do? And you know what, lots of people will literally throw that tree out. So like with our group, it makes me feel good, but I also think of, the larger consumer base, which is very much like, oh, if it's not looking good, they'll throw it out. You know what I mean? And so that's my bigger concern is nowadays is, how there isn't that sort of, that next step in that product evolution, because there has been in so many things, you know what I mean? People have realized, like, and I think of like the needles and all that stuff, and I'm like, there's got to be something out there that, like, where's a tree that's advertising needles made out of recycled plastic and things like that? So I'm kind of curious as to where it would go, because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think they're both special, and especially if you've had one for 26 years, try to find me a tree, like that has that many memories attached to it, you know what I mean? And then it's neat with Nicole because, having done that with the kids and going out to the tree farm and like cutting down a tree and bringing it back is so much fun.
Oh no.
Did we lose him?
Oh no.
Hopefully he joins us back.
Yes.
But
he will join us back. So no worries. And yes, I think we have a conversation like this it's a sustainable game with the Humber Arboretum ambassadors, that there's not such thing as, something really being sustainable or not, like a harsh answer. But we believe that the most sustainable thing that you can do if you're, concerned about that is the thing that you have right now. So if you right now have a fake tree and still, usable and you have no problems with it, still use it, as much as you can. If you can make it last more than 26 years as like Sticky's family, that will be perfect. If you can do a real tree, you can do it too. So try to use the thing that you have right now and try to, take as much advantage as you can. And Jimmy, you're back.
I am, and because I was gonna say that, just to let you know, I actually have you. So I have you beat on tree longevity, Sticky, because my parents still use our original, even though we've been like, this tree's looking a little sparse there, Mom and Dad. And they're like, no, we are not getting rid of it, and we've had it literally. That tree would be at least 41 years old, because before it was ours, it was actually my Nana's, and I don't even know how long my Nana had it. So I could do some research and ask my dad. For all I know, the thing's 60 years old, and it was my dad's tree when he was a kid. But it's just like I said, it's a neat thing, right? I don't even care what it looks like. I'm just joking when we tell them to get rid of it, because there would be some serious repercussions if they ever got rid of that tree without telling us. But it just shows the specialness of a tree like that, right? And so I think one is neat because it has a place in the natural cycle, but the other one's neat because it's something that lasts a long time, and it's just got so many cool, memories of a special time. So I think it's it's a neat topic, and I'm happy that David brought that up, because I think, like you said, it's the most sustainable option is the one that you have right now. And if you don't have one, well, then you get to choose. You gotta get and now you'll be able to look at some of the newer, some of the fake trees with more of a sustainable lens. And to be quite honest, like I said, I've not looked that up. Maybe there is something out there. I would be kind of shocked to see, our world is making really good movement towards that. So and if not, well, then hey, one of us just has to start up our own sustainable fake tree Christmas tree company or something like that.
Exactly. So if you come up with that idea, you will get a call from Jimmy. All right.
Yeah,
So Christmas.
10% in royalties.
Christmas trees are very special, for the holidays, if you celebrate Christmas. But this is the nature exchange. We always like to, end up talking about birds because that is just the way as it is. So we're gonna talk a little bit about winter birds, and you might be familiar with the song of 12 Days of Christmas Carol. So over to Nicole to tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I don't know anything more divisive around the holiday season than Christmas music. Like, some people love it, some people hate it. I used to work in retail, so I'm kind of erring on the side of hating it. But the song 12 Days of Christmas, it actually has a lot of different types of birds in the song, I'm sure as you guys know. So when I was younger and hearing the song, I never knew what a partridge was. So I asked my mom, and she told me it was a bird. So up until the other day, I thought a partridge was actually a specific type of bird, but after doing some research, I found it's not a singular bird, but it's actually a group of birds. So partridges include any medium-sized non-migratory bird. So technically, there's a lot of birds that can actually be considered a partridge. And then another bird in the song are doves, specifically turtle doves. So doves, they got their name from their sound, actually. So their sound is kind of like tur tur, so that's where the name turtle dove came from, like turtle dove. And doves are a symbol of peace, so I'm assuming that's why they were used in the song around the holiday season. And I actually just found out during research, apparently turtle doves are like close to extinction or something, which is really sad. I didn't know that, but apparently their species are in decline. And then throughout the song, there's other mentions of different birds. So there's French hens and calling birds, and there's geese, and there's swans as well. And I didn't even realize how many birds were in the song until I actually searched it up. But that's just a little bit about that. I mean, I don't know if anyone knew how many birds were in the song or whatever, but
Yeah, I was surprised by the amount of birds in the song as well. I thought it was a little more diverse in the gifts, but yeah, no, like
realized.
yeah.
Yes, and chickens also.
Yeah, the French hens.
Yeah.
Yes, but we wanted to end up in the birds note because this is the nature exchange that we end up talking about birds anyway. And a special mention to chickadees because that is also one of my favorite activities on winter, going to feed the chickadees at the Humber Arboretum. So something cool to do during the winter. And I don't know if someone wants to mention something about birds during winter before we wrap up. Max.
Well, it's traditional. Like, a lot of families have a tradition of cooking a turkey for Christmas, right? So the wild turkey is a native species to our region, which, if you explore enough, you might end up getting lucky and seeing one. So that's a connection there.
Yes. Turkeys. Marilyn.
I should have told this before because it would have been the perfect transition. But did everybody hear last year about the Rockefeller Christmas tree and the little stowaway? Did anybody hear about this? So in Rockefeller Square in New York, they bring in a massive real tree every year, and they have to cut it. I mean, there's no giant trees; they have to cut it from really far away in the state. So I think it traveled like 170 miles or something on a big truck, and they put it up. And after, as the guys were getting it all up, the workers realized there was a little saw-whet owl in the tree who had been transported all that way because they like bundle it up. So they nicknamed him Rocky. He was okay. He went to the local wildlife rehab, and they checked him out and shipped him back to where he'd come from. But so yeah, Rocky the traveling Christmas owl, would be another one. And a note to check your real trees if you are cutting down a real tree for any little friends before you take it.
Yes, he had a Christmas road trip. So
there's a great story about Christmas tree stowaways in the Minnow and Mouse blog post.
Max is just all about plugging me today. Well, I will mention though, actually, because that is a real thing. The story Max is referring to is about praying mantises being in the Christmas tree, and that is a real thing that happens. That praying mantis egg cases are sometimes attached to coniferous trees. So if you are getting a real tree, maybe have a look. And if there's any little, I don't know, how do we describe it, guys? Like it's a little pale beigey, sort of like elongated case thing. They can be, kind of lumpy, but if there's something like that stuck to your tree, be careful, because then you're going to maybe have hundreds of baby mantises for Christmas. So you want to leave that behind.
Yes. So I would say if you are going to harvest any, go and get some Christmas tree, real Christmas tree, just try to get it from a sustainable source, responsible source that, make sure that they don't include any wildlife, and check out your trees in case you have some bugs or something right there. But, apart from that, you will be getting also some good scent in your house and, a little friend that it will be with you for the Christmas. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us at the Nature Exchange, hosted by the Humber Arboretum Ambassadors. Yes, and we will see you. Is this the final one? This is the final of the year, the final Nature Exchange?
2022, we'll be back.
Yeah, we'll be back on 2022. Thank you so much for being here. This was a nice project by the Humber Arboretum Ambassadors. Our respect to Sticky, because this is actually, a tough job to do, but we made it. We made it, everyone. And we hope to have more like this with future Humber Arboretum Ambassadors. So if you're hearing this recording, viewing this recording, you can join us. Every semester, just go to the Humber Arboretum webpage and you will find out more about students' opportunities at the Humber Arboretum. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great one and have a Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. I don't. All right. Have a great one. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Bye. When I finish